Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 3:06 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, E.J. Antoni, the economist, our economist, joins us at 4 o'clock. 4:30, Batya Ungar-Sargon from Newsweek is here. She's great. We'll can't wait to talk to her about all of the commie craziness on campus. Mark Morano joins us at 5 o'clock. As Joe Biden awards a couple of Democrats with a Medal of Freedom. These are anti-human people. They're getting freedom medals. And then Mike McCormick will be with us at 5:30. Former stenographer for Joe Biden. He's got some thoughts on COVID-19 and the way that thing was created and Hunter Biden's involvement, connection to that world. Kind of fascinating. It's all ahead. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. I don't know about you. I keep seeing all these polls that Trump is doing really well. That's great news for Trump and for the country, and may it hold. May the voters and their will be done this year. But one of the features of this is Biden is just a disaster. Biden is such a disaster that people are siding with Trump either because they like him or they just can't stand Joe. They just can't stand Joe. And so what is the White House supposed to do? How do they spin out of all of this? How do they convince people that you should sign up for more Joe? Well, yesterday, Biden comes out, after months of silence on the issue, finally issues some crappy little statement about the campus commies. He offers no help whatsoever to restore order. He says things like, anti-Semitism has no place in America, even though he and his party have been stoking it like crazy. And then he walks away from the microphone, barely answers a question. Somebody shouts out, do you think the National Guard should be called? No. And then he walks out, right out of the Roosevelt room. And then today, what does the White House do? Well, yet another stupid, we brought some D-list celebrity to the White House, and they're going to talk to the press, and this is going to convince everybody to like us. Today's example of that, Luke Skywalker. Mark Hammil, the man whose career is defined by literally just that role only, it was brought up to, nowadays he's defined by just being another left-wing lunatic. He's an idiot. And so they bring him out to the microphone to try and schmooze with the press. And here's what he has to say. He thinks Joe Biden's just been a tremendous success, and he wants everybody to know about it.
Really, there's no introduction that really is needed here. I have a special guest, as you can see. Mark Hammil has decided to join us on this wonderful Friday, and I am really excited to turn it over to Mr. Hammil. Here we go.
Okay, how many of you had Mark Hammil?
I will say, I just realized I didn't give him the credit he deserves. There is one other acting credit he deserves. He played the voice of Joker in, I think, in a lot of the Batman animated series stuff from the 90s. And in that role did a great job. That was actually an Emmy Award-winning performance, that particular show. So I remembered that one.
Leave the press briefing on your bingo card. Hands? Yeah, me either. And look, I just got to meet the president. He gave me these aviator glasses. I love the merch. Love it all. But listen, I just wanted to say, I was honored to be asked to come to the White House to meet the president.
Oh, boy. Come on.
The most legislative, successful president in my lifetime.
What was that?
And, I don't have to go through the list, the bipartisan infrastructure law, the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act, all of that. Inflation, 15 million jobs.
Inflation.
It's all good. I mean, I was really thrilled to meet.
He's done great with inflation.
The entire staff, because it's not just one person. It's like a composite.
It takes a whole bunch of idiots to screw everything up this badly. It's not just one person.
Sure. And all these people, my goodness, I have no idea. I had no idea just what went into what is on his plate on a daily basis. So that's pretty much.
They have to blend it for a long time so he can eat it.
Chad, I'm open to questions, although no Star Wars questions, please. But I want to say once again how grateful I am, and it just shows you that one person can be so influential and so positive in our lives.
What is he even talking about?
Again, thank you so much. And Peter Baker, I loved your book. Yes.
Wow. Motivating. Then it gets even cringier, actually. Let's see here. He took 2 questions from the press, as I guess they sucked up to him. Here we go.
Thank you, Mark Hammil, for being here. What did you ask? What did you talk about with the president?
Well, first of all, I only expected to be there for like 5 minutes. He showed us all his photographs, and
he's got nothing to do, Mark. Don't worry, you're not taking up any time.
You know, it was really amazing to me because I was invited to the Carter White House, and I came, and then I came to the Obama White House. But I never was invited into the Oval Office, and it was a large gathering. So this one was really extra special.
All right, sir.
So, yes.
Wow.
Can Biden bring up Star Wars too, sir?
Well, I called him Mr. President. He said, you can call me Joe. And I said, can I call you Joebi Wan Kenobi? He liked.
Where's my crickets sound effect? I need to find it. Is it here? There. Crickets. Joebi Wan Kenobi. Come on, please.
That. But listen, I'm not really here to dominate. I have to turn it back over to our wonderful press secretary,
Wonderful.
Jean-Pierre. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here. I got to get those shades. Thank you, guys. Thank you. No one ever
clapping.
claps for me when I get off the podium.
There's a reason for that.
I'm just saying.
They should boo, actually. When you leave, can you imagine at the end of every press briefing, boo, as she's walking out of the room? Man. That's what they're doing at the White House about Karine Jean-Pierre. You saw that report recently. They've been trying to figure out a way to get rid of her. They don't know how. They keep calling all of her friends. Tell her she should leave. Why don't you tell her? Doesn't she work for you? Why doesn't Biden just say, hey, thanks, but no thanks. You got to go. No, they can't. They can't do that. Karine was asked, why did you even bring Mark Hammil out here? What was the point of all of that?
What was Mark Hammil doing here today?
I think he said he was having a meeting. Did you not like having him here?
No.
Okay, can I have a meeting with Biden? Can we have a meeting? Mark had a meeting. He just had a meeting with Joe.
I was like,
We all love
it sounded very kind of like, why here? He said it himself. We wanted to make sure that he provided, which is one of the reasons he spoke to why he was here himself. He wanted to meet with the president. They had a meeting.
For what?
Well, you guys asked him questions.
Oh my God.
Okay,
so let me set the frame for you. Normally what happens here is when a celebrity goes to visit the president of the United States, usually it's issue advocacy. They bring something with them, like, I want to talk about mental health awareness or something. I talked to the president about this particular issue, save the puppies, whatever. That's normally what happens here. Mark Hammil didn't, if he had some sort of mission, he didn't bring it up. It never came up at any point during his remarks. Karine either was completely uninformed or there was no point to this meeting other than to be like, hey, look, some random Hollywood celebrity was here. We're kind of popular. Look.
And, you guys asked him questions.
Oh, my God.
They had a meeting about what the president has been able to do on behalf of the American people. Mark Hammil was in town. They met.
Just in town.
I think it was important as someone you all.
They just stopped by for insurers, the two of them sitting around.
know Mark Hammil. He is someone who is very much invested in our country, very much invested in
Is he?
in the direction of this country.
He's like constantly whining about anything that might be good for the country. How is he invested in our country?
And so they had a meeting. It was he.
And there's a whole roster of celebrities who are like this. Mark Hamill and Stephen King and Robert De Niro is just whining and whining and whining all the time because people might prefer less government and to keep more of their own money.
Went into that meeting, and we thought it would be fun for him to come out here and lighten up the room a little bit on a Friday. We also believe that you guys there's some Star Wars fans in here, but the president meets with a lot of people. There's a lot of people that come through the White House that the president has an opportunity.
Normally if you do a job for a while, you at least get a little bit better at it, don't you think? What do they say? Isn't it like 10,000 hours to master something? I've heard that before. If you do something for 10,000 hours, you achieve mastery of it. Has Coringe ever gotten better at this job? It seems like she just keeps getting worse.
Opportunity to sit down and talk with. You just happen to see Mark Hammil today because we thought it would be a nice gesture.
Happened to see him.
Have him come out and say hello. But I wouldn't put too much. I really wouldn't put too much.
There's no security at the White House. People just happen to show up. There you go. Jeremy calling in from Winchester now, line 2. Jeremy, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show on a Friday. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon. Hey, seeing him standing at the podium, I did a double take. He looked like he just came off a 3-day bender. I'm sure he didn't look good.
Yeah, he looked like a mess. You're totally right about that.
He did. I'm sure he had to get liquored up to stand there at the podium.
And then tell us everything's great.
Safe to say, I think Luke Skywalker has finally turned to the dark side.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure. In the end, that's how the movies should have gone anyway. That's how it should have ended with him on the dark side. So here we go. This is I don't know what episode this is, but it's very, very late in the series. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Luke Skywalker goes to the dark side. Yeah. Right, because let's be honest, Joe Biden's a Sith. He's not an especially bright one, but he's a Sith. Let's see here. I've got Monty in Monroe here on line 4. Monty, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Yeah, right. I mean, instead of, what do you call him, Joebi Wan Kenobi?
Yeah.
He should be called Joba the Hutt.
Joba the Hutt, because he's a villain. No question about this.
And he's a slob. Yeah.
Joebi Wan Kenobi. The concept, Monty, he's a slob. He has trouble with the lettuce getting to his face. But the concept here, Joebi Wan Kenobi, what Mark Hammil was trying to suggest is, he's like the wise elder. He's the guy who's leading us. He's gonna save the whole entire thing. That's quite literally the opposite of what Joe's doing.
If that's the case, and if it's about intellect, then let's call him Joe Binks, because he's about on the same level.
I like that even better. Joe Binks. That's pretty funny. That's a good one. Thank you, Monty. That's pretty great. All right, let me see here. I've got Sean, Columbia, line 3. Sean, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, thanks for taking my call. I thought when Mark Hammil said that he brought out photos, he was going to say he brought out all these documents that had top secret all over them, and we just sat for hours looking at them.
Yeah, he would do that. He's that kind of reckless. But you know something? If Biden did do that, he'd be allowed to, because technically right now he's president of the United States. He could do that, and that's what we've been trying to say for years now as they go after Trump for how he handled classified documents. But yeah, you're right. That's the kind of thing Joe would do. He keeps the classified documents next to the car in his garage, the Corvette, and he shows them off to Mark Hammil, who is famous for 2 things now that I can recall: Luke Skywalker and the Joker in Batman the Animated Series. All right, hold on. More of your calls and a lot more coming up, including a New York Times revelation today that those COVID jabs may have some nasty side effects. They're willing to talk about this now in the year of our Lord 2024. All right, let me take Donna from Frederick, line 1. Donna, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, Donna. Donna. She's not there. Oh, well, we'll get back. Donna will be back, I assure you. That happens. Bill is in Manassas, line 3. Bill, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon, Vince. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Bill.
I was just talking to your screener, and I listened to the Mark Hammil thing there, and I had to laugh, and I said, I told your screener that can't wait till next week when Biden makes another speech, maybe to his rallies that he goes to. He's probably going to say that he's been an astronaut, he's been in outer space, because I think the man's had just about every job he could have. He's been lived just about everywhere. So I thought it was kind of cool. I got to tell Vince this is pretty funny,
Yeah, he probably thinks he met a spaceman just now. Yeah, he probably asked him about Star Wars as if it was like a documentary or something, or maybe Joe put himself in the movie. You can't put that past him. He may have suggested when he was talking to Mark Hammil, he goes, I was in Star Wars, and Mark Hammil nods along. Oh, you were? He's like, yeah, I was hanging out. I was hanging out with the Vulcans. Sure you were.
R2, somebody like that, yeah. I just thought it was pretty funny. I'll let you go. You have a good Friday, man. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Bill's done.
Okay.
Bill's said it all. Yeah, I do. I still like Joe Binks. I think that's one of the best. Let's see here. Nick, Purcellville, line 2. Hello, Nick. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vincent.
Hey, sir.
Next time, Elvin Bragg, Letitia James, and Fannie Willis visit, why not bring them out? We'd like to ask them a few questions, wouldn't we?
I know, yeah. Or Nathan Wade, or how about the White House doctor? They don't even put the White House doctor in front of the press. We can talk to Luke Skywalker, but we're not allowed to talk to the doctor to ask him what kind of drugs he's pumping into Joe. That never happens. So you've noticed that they only put frivolous nonsense people in front of the press.
Well, it appears that way. I can't conclude anything about that. But anyway, how about next month? Let's bring some of the Palestinian refugees there to mumble.
Yeah. Let's ask them some questions. If they're going to come to the country, they should be subjected to some questioning. And Nick, you and I could do it. We'll do it together. Good
idea.
All right, man. Thank you very much. Bye. No, it's a good point. Why are you bringing out all these idiots to talk to us? And speaking of idiots, they're everywhere in the White House. I'm beginning to wonder, unless I think the answer to the question I'm about to ask is basically just Pete Buttigieg. But is there anyone in the administration who can speak in a complete English sentence? Anybody? Because Biden, no. Kamala, no. Karine Jean-Pierre, no. How about White House economic advisor Jared Bernstein? The answer to that is no. He can't speak English. In fact, he doesn't even understand economics. I'm going to play some audio for you coming up, and we'll get to that with E.J. Antoni later in the program. Also, I've got to share with you some of the details about the COVID jab. The New York Times has this nasty little habit of admitting things years after they're meaningful, and they just did it again. This time they say, hey, those side effects, maybe it's time we start talking about them. Well, it's well past time. We'll give you an update on that. And the government officials who now say that they're embarrassed they didn't call out the COVID jab side effects before. Aw, a little bit of an oversight. That's ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Hey there, it is now 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, E.J. Antoni joins us, top of the hour. We talked to him about the economy and about the people who are supposed to be making it work in the Biden administration. They have no idea what they're doing. Batya Ungar-Sargon from Newsweek joins us at 4:30. We'll examine all of these anti-Israel and anti-America lunatics on campuses across the country. Mark Morano is here at 5 o'clock with us as we discuss the left's efforts to try and control the weather by taking your power and livelihood. And Mike McCormick is here at 5:30 as we link Hunter Biden with the world that gave us COVID. Thanks, guys. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Now, on this economy thing, again, E.J. Antoni, our economist, coming up top of the hour. There are a number of people in the Biden administration who claim to be working on it, but even the stuff that they do on the economy is a lie, right? The Inflation Reduction Act, it was not actually for that. That was for, it only made inflation go up, and it had nothing to do with helping the economy out at all. There's quite a few examples like this. Additionally, we've got the White House economic advisor, a guy by the name of Jared Bernstein, who apparently participated in a documentary recently. So he sat down for some sort of extended interview. And the name of the film is Find the Money. Find the Money. And in it, Bernstein is asked, why can't the government, instead of borrowing money at all, why can't you just print it? Why can't you just print it? Now, this is modern monetary theory in a nutshell. This is what the left wants. This is what AOC, to the extent that she thinks about the economy at all, this is what she wants. Stop worrying about everything. All you have to do is print the money. Anything the government wants to do, just print the cash, and we're good to go. Right? Then remember a couple years back, they were like, why don't we just mint $1 trillion coin? That'd be a good idea. And of course, those of us who live in the real world know what happens when you print money endlessly. You get inflation. When you have too much currency floating around in the market and not enough goods, that makes the value of those goods skyrocket. You have to pay that much more. This is a basic phenomenon. This is inflation. Even a guy like me can understand that. And so you would think Jared Bernstein would understand the basics here. But it turns out he doesn't. So in case you were wondering, is everyone around Joe incompetent and a fraud? Well, here's the answer on Jared Bernstein. Take a listen to this.
The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar, so why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do?
This, by the way, just to be super clear on who you're listening to, this is the head of the Council of Economic Advisors for the Biden administration, wondering whether or not the government sells bonds and how it prints money and how does our economic system work.
Some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be
modern,
kind of unnecessary.
MMT, modern monetary theory. It means print as much money as you want.
Confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money, and then it uses that money to
for what?
So, yeah, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So, I don't think there's anything confusing there.
That's my favorite part of the whole cut. I don't think there's anything confusing there. No, that was totally clear. That was as clear as a Corinne Jean-Pierre statement. That was perfect. Thank you for that. I feel so much better now. Holy cow. E.J. Antoni was the first to direct me to this point, but and again, he's coming up at the top of the hour. But do you know what this guy's educated in? It's not the economy. He went to the Manhattan School of Music. He got his bachelor's in music there. He got a master's in social work from Hunter College. And then he got a doctorate in social work from Columbia. Columbia. That what chaos Columbia has produced. So the guy got a doctorate in social work, and that's what we get. That's what we get. He's the chief economist for the United States of America. Wonderful news. Wonderful news. He has no idea what he's even talking about, how the economy works, where money comes from, what currency is, what it's even used to pay for. Did you hear what he said there? He was like, we print the money and then we use it for the government programs that we can't afford. Can you say anything? He said, it's not confusing, he says. Sure. We'll get back to that in a few minutes here is when E.J. Antoni joins us. In the meantime, I also want to talk about the COVID jab with you and the sudden discovery by the New York Times that it might have side effects. Yeah, they published a piece today, and I should note that they go out of their way to do a lot of throat clearing about why they published this piece at all, because they know that they have an audience that cannot stand this conversation. This audience does not want to hear that there's a downside to the COVID jabs at all. But here's how the New York Times piece begins this morning. It's Apoorva Mandavilli. who they say spent more than a year talking to dozens of experts in vaccine science, policymakers, and people who said that they had experienced serious side effects after receiving a COVID-19 vaccine. Within minutes of getting the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine, Michelle Zimmerman felt pain racing from her left arm up to her ear and down to her fingertips. Within days, she was unbearably sensitive to light and struggled to remember simple facts. She was 37 years old, with a PhD in neuroscience, and until then could ride her bicycle 20 miles, teach a dance class, and give a lecture on artificial intelligence, all in the same day. Now, more than 3 years later, she lives with her parents. Eventually diagnosed with brain damage, she cannot work, drive, or even stand for long periods of time. Quote, let me point something out here. She's a PhD in neuroscience. So the reason the New York Times is treating her seriously is because she comes from the world of credentialing that they take seriously. So normal people without PhDs in neuroscience, treated like garbage, but they lead with her, I think, partly to convince their audience that, see, this is a highly educated person. She comes from our world, and she's saying this, is what the New York Times is trying to convey here. 37, PhD in neuroscience. She used to ride her bike 20 miles, teach a dance class, give lectures on AI. Not anymore. She has brain damage. She lives with her parents. She can't drive. She can't stand. Quote, when I let myself think about the devastation of what this has done to my life and how much I've lost, sometimes it feels even too hard to comprehend, said Dr. Zimmerman, who believes her injury is due to a contaminated vaccine batch. The COVID vaccines, this is the New York Times now, a triumph of science and public health, are estimated to have prevented millions of hospitalizations and deaths. Yet even the best vaccines produce rare but serious side effects, they point out, quite obviously. And the COVID vaccines have been given to more than 270 million people in the United States in nearly 677 million doses. That's most of the country. We have, 330, 340 million? Something like that. 270 million people have gotten the jab. Dr. Zimmerman's account is among the more harrowing, the Times claims, but thousands of Americans believe they have suffered serious side effects following COVID vaccination. As of April, just over 13,000 vaccine injury compensation claims have been filed with the federal government, but to little avail. Only 19% have even been reviewed. Over 47 of those deemed eligible for compensation, and only 12 have been paid out at an average of $3,600. Some scientists fear that patients with real injuries are being denied help and believe that more needs to be done to clarify the possible risks. Quote, at least long COVID has become somewhat recognized, said Akiko Iwasaki, an immunologist and vaccine expert at Yale. But people who say they have post-vaccination injuries are, quote, just completely ignored and dismissed and gaslighted, she added. Ignored, dismissed, and gaslighted. In interviews and email exchanges conducted over several months, federal health officials insisted that serious side effects were extremely rare and that their surveillance efforts were more than sufficient to detect patterns of adverse events. Quote, hundreds of millions of people in the United States have safely received COVID vaccines under the most intense safety monitoring in U.S. history, said Jeff Nesbitt, a spokesman for the Department of Health and Human Services, in an emailed statement. But in a recent interview, Dr. Janet Woodcock, a longtime leader of the Food and Drug Administration, who retired in February, said she believed that some recipients had experienced uncommon but, quote, serious and life-changing reactions beyond those described by federal agencies. Quote, I feel bad for those people, said Dr. Woodcock, who became the FDA's acting commissioner in January of 2021 as the vaccines were rolling out. Quote, I believe their suffering should be acknowledged, that they have real problems, and that they should be taken seriously. I'm disappointed in myself, she added. I did a lot of things I feel very good about, but this is one of the few things I feel I just didn't bring it home. Now, let me pause on this concept. You have an admission here from the former head of Biden's Food and Drug Administration. She became the acting FDA commissioner in January of 2021. This would be the beginning of the Biden administration as the vaccines were rolling out. And she says, I'm disappointed in myself. I didn't acknowledge that there are downsides to getting things injected into you. And by the way, that as the New York Times noted further up in this piece, that is true of literally any medicine or drug or anything. I mean, there are going to be side effects. But the efforts by the federal government to, what's the phrase that the other expert used? Ignore, dismiss, and gaslight Americans is downright Soviet. Downright Soviet. And here you have Janet Woodcock, longtime FDA official, saying, should have admitted this. Should have said something about it. If I have any regret whatsoever, it's that. By the way, I just checked to verify. She was the acting head of the FDA from January 20th of 2021 until February 17th of 2022. So over a year in that role, placed there by Joe Biden. And she's admitting now in the New York Times, because I guess that's the safe place for the left. They can say things like this in the New York Times. Nowhere else. That, I feel bad for these people. I probably should have taken it more seriously that people are having bad side effects. Those side effects, there's more in this piece. They talk about a guy called Sean Barkavage. He's 54 years old, a nurse practitioner in New York City who worked on clinical trials for HIV and COVID. So again, look what they're doing here. They're trying to basically say, these are not crazy people. These are our people. They work in the medical field. They've worked on clinical trials, and they are having these problems. He said that ever since his first COVID shot, merely standing up sent his heart racing. A symptom suggestive of postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, a neurological disorder that some studies have linked to both COVID and much less often vaccination. He also experienced stinging pain in his eyes, mouth, and genitals, which has abated, and tinnitus, which has not, he said, the ringing of the ears. I can't get the government to help me, Mr. Barkavage said, of his fruitless pleas to federal agencies and elected representatives. Quote, I am told I'm not real. I'm told I'm rare. I'm told I'm coincidence. I'm coincidence. It's not the only case of tinnitus mentioned here. There's quite a few other people say this too. Dr. Gregory Poland, 68, editor-in-chief of the journal Vaccine, said that a loud whooshing sound in his ears has accompanied every moment since his first shot. Every moment since his shot. But that his entreaties to colleagues at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to explore the phenomenon had led nowhere. He received polite responses to his many emails, but, quote, I just don't get any sense of movement, he says. Quote, if they have done studies, those studies should be published, Dr. Poland added. Can I just emphasize something here? He's the editor-in-chief of a journal called Vaccine. And he can't even get government officials to acknowledge that the ringing in his ears is a product of all of this. In despair that he might, quote, never hear silence again, he has sought solace in meditation and his religious faith. Dr. Buddy Creech is 50. He led several COVID vaccine trials at Vanderbilt University. Said he had tinnitus and a racing heart that lasted about a week after each shot. Quote, is very similar to what I experienced during acute COVID back in March of 2020, Dr. Creech said. So, this is just the beginning. They're holding back on going beyond this in terms of like, oh, there's these other dastardly side effects that may occur. We've heard all sorts of things. They do acknowledge the heart swelling in young men. That's the federal government eventually did start admitting, oh, yeah, there is that going on. We should probably know about that young men have their hearts swelling after they're getting jabs. The other thing, remember, throughout all this, you had women who were very concerned about their reproductive cycle and how it was being disrupted by the COVID jabs. And they kept raising this, and they were being told, oh, don't worry about it. Nothing's going on here. And once again, the gaslighting throughout all of this. And finally, the New York Times slightly creaking the door open for the left to begin having this conversation, years after so many of us were already doing that. So that's the update on that subject. More from you coming up. Also, E.J. Antoni is just minutes away. We're going to talk to him about Joe Biden's crazy economic advisor who doesn't understand the economy. Right to the phones we go. Frank calling in from Annandale, line 3. Frank, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show, sir.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to say some things real quick. One of my sons was diagnosed with brain cancer in 2020, in November of 2020. And I always thought maybe, did he get COVID? Was COVID responsible for him developing glioblastoma? He fought really well. He lived a whole year without major symptoms after having a resection, but he passed away in January of 2023. It was tragic. But I just want the audience to know that living through that, especially during COVID with the lockdowns and seeing my son who was struggling to survive be forced to wear a mask playing sports, and he was able to recover enough to play sports, but forced to wear a mask was just out of control. I just can't believe that we went through such an episode. And, one more thing, virus, all viruses attenuate themselves after the first wave. So, it's probably true. A lot of people got sick and died after the first wave, but after the second and third wave, Omicron and the Delta variants, it's not as bad. And so what I think happened is that the people started taking the vaccine, and the vaccine actually started making people very sick. And so, like you're saying in the New York Times piece, people are starting to realize this, and they should have realized it a long time ago. And I think there's been a lot of crimes against humanity. And I'll tell you this, too. One of my employees was forced to take the vaccine because of a government contract, and she lost eyesight in one of her eyes, and also she has swelling in her now.
Oh, no.
The way she used to. She had to move into a single-family, single-level home because she couldn't climb the stairs anymore. So the things are happening. It's true.
Yeah. And people like her have been treated like utter garbage, as if their problems don't exist.
They have. They have. Absolutely.
I'm sorry to hear about your son's situation, Frank, but I'm very grateful for your call today. Thank you for making it. Thank you very much. All right, coming up, we talk the economy with our economist, E.J. Antoni. He'll be here in a moment, and we'll see whether he knows more than Joe Biden's top economist.